takes a long time to recover from it.
Yeah.
Seems like it's longer and longer these days.
Well, I guess we get older and just bring back. Changes things.
Setbacks and that was all it was ridiculously. For the expense. The bonds for sufficiency for transfer of church revenue. And I'd like to send those to you, make sure they're voted. Scan them, send them to the legal, make sure they're.
Hello. How you doing?
I don't hold those in my office. I think so. I think it's where the funds are. And then, but.
Basically, Jersey.
Good. How are you?
That who should do that?
Hello, fine. How are you?
Somebody should probably date the maturity of those so we can do a field test.
I'm pretty quiet.
And maybe maybe go block it. But somebody should check the sufficiency of the road again before the bonds expiration.
Well,
But it's not my department, so
I
I'm trying to hand that off.
I was insulted for a shot.
The way I am about buying copy of paper plans, Sean's like that about
But I
how
told
I
your
buy.
wife, whatever is still in the songs like years, he's either getting 30
That's fine, it's clear, but I think it's still.
Nobody wants to get started.
It's a trash.
Putting it forward.
And I've stretched this one back.
I know.
Give yourself a cell phone, just 6 months, stretches that you mentioned.
I almost.
Good evening.
Nice to see you. How are things?
Going to call our meeting to order. Just like to thank you for coming this evening, and I would ask you if you have cell phones to please put them on vibrate or turn them off at this time. We will stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Bessie Wagenhouse and prayer by Jim Malinowski. Councilmember.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we gather this evening seeking your guidance and wisdom. Grant us the patience to listen with open minds, the humility to thoughtfully consider the requests and concerns of our neighbors, and the courage to weigh each position with fairness and respect. Help us to foster unity and cohesiveness within our community so that our decisions may strengthen bonds rather than divide. May our deliberations be thorough, our actions consistent, and our judgments guided by justice and compassion. Bless this council with clarity, wisdom, and a spirit of service so that the work we do here may honor both you and the people we serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Tonight's public hearing is a follow-up on the city's transportation plan, and we are here to hear comments and feedback from the public, and we appreciate all the letters and input we have already received. We'll begin this evening by inviting planner to make a short announcement before we open the floor. Molly.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to remind you all that and announce for the public that this meeting was advertised as a public hearing prior to adoption. But as you all discussed at your last work session, you all elected to place that on the Planning and Zoning Commission's upcoming agenda and then on the following Mayor and Council agenda for consideration for adoption. So just reminding you all of that shift that happened after we advertised for this meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. So now the floor is open for comments. If anyone have any comments they would like to make at this time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Once again, Mr. Mayor. You all, I think that you all know me, but for the record, I'm Celia Murray. I live at 535 South Main Street. I appreciate all the effort and all the time that you all have put into consideration of the transportation plan and allowing the public to have input into it. I looked at the last iteration and I noted on the executive summary that there are 8 goals listed. The 7th goal of the 8 is reroute truck traffic away from downtown and neighborhoods to alleviate impacts to noise, safety, and the small town experience. In my mind, that should be number 1. Because most of the other traffic problems we have in Madison are directly related to the amount of truck traffic we have. And we recognize that that truck traffic's just going to keep on coming. So I urge you to make the top priority alleviating that truck traffic through the construction of the bypass. We've talked about it endlessly for years now. And I would encourage this body to make it a number 1 priority to coordinate with the county, to coordinate with the state, to do anything. And I think we have, as a city, have laid out a great plan for a bypass that I understand the state is pretty happy with. But we need to do everything to push that forward, because that's the only way that we're going to get the tractor-trailer traffic off Main Street and out of downtown. So I don't know that the goals were listed in a priority order, but if so, that needs to go to the top of the list. Number 8 on the goals list, or executive summary list of goals, is provide practical, buildable, and fundable solutions to address Madison's transportation challenges. A lot of the transportation plan deals with bike trails and pedestrian walkways and green spaces and other ways of moving people around town. All of those are wonderful things to have. And I appreciate that we live in a community that does have a lot of walking trails, that has a lot of green space. I appreciate all of that. We see on Old Post bicyclists all the time. They come up and down Old Post on a daily basis. We see them, along with a huge number of walkers on Old Post. I appreciate all that. But those things cost money too. Nothing like the bypass. But if the bypass is the solution to the big problem, that needs to be the focus. And we don't, I would encourage you not to get bogged down in these small projects that are wonderful to have, but would ultimately drain resources away from the number 1 goal, which is the bypass goal, and and things that are going to help the bypass come to the forefront. That just, I believe, really needs to be the number 1 thing that happens. Another thing that is in the current plan concerns Main Street and the triangle, the infamous triangle. It is not something that one normally sees in historic towns. But I'm going to say that the best plan I saw, the best solution I've seen from anybody for the triangle was Paul Anderson's roundabout in the little park there, not in the triangle itself, but a large roundabout in that park to move that traffic through the triangle and reduce the number of accidents there. It may or may not be workable, it may or may not be doable, but the proposal to basically push traffic into these narrow residential streets around the triangle, that's just not going to work. Likewise, converting Main Street to single lanes with a central median is only going to slow traffic down. That turn lane creates its own little set of problems, but it's much better than just having 2 lanes and a central median. To not have that turn lane means that traffic will slow down dramatically. Postal carrier trucks, those little trucks come up and down. There's nowhere for them to pull off. There's no road edge that they can pull off onto, no right-of-way that they could pull off onto to deliver mail. So they're sitting in the traffic lane, and cars back up behind them. And they deliver mail at one house and move a few yards forward and deliver house at another mail, and it creates a backup. With that turn lane, people routinely go around them. I know, I'm glad the police chief isn't here because I know that that is technically illegal, but it does keep traffic flowing. Utility trucks, just recently we had a utility truck in front of our house cutting limbs off the Georgia Power poles, lines, cutting the limbs away from there. Cars use that turn lane to go around. How are those utility trucks going to function on Main Street if they're backing up traffic for blocks and blocks and blocks? Because they have to sit there and there's nowhere else to go around them if you've got a median in the center of the road. No way to get around them. There are 2 power poles in front of my house. This is just anecdotal, but there are 2 power poles, one sort of on each corner of the lot, but they're both in front of our house. Over the time we've lived there, there have been accidents that have taken down both of those separate accidents, but each of those power poles has come down and had to be replaced because of accidents. One involved a truck, one involved a car that car lost control and hit the pole. To back up that traffic is just going to create a more dangerous condition with regard to that very, very narrow right-of-way. I know there's nothing you can do about it. And I know that the road is as wide as the road is going to be, but we don't need to take up any of that valuable real estate with medians and impede that flow of traffic on Main Street. But again, the way to make Main Street flow more freely is the bypass. Categorizing Dixie Avenue as a major collector is, in my mind, a very bad idea, because that's just inviting major traffic to come into the city through the historic district, through those narrow roads. Again, those streets are Old Post. My driveway is on Old Post. If there is a truck, a pickup truck, I'm talking like a Ford F-150 or a large SUV, a Tahoe or something, they stop. One pulls over and stops to let the oncoming vehicle pass. I have pulled over and stopped to let trucks by. I have had trucks or SUVs pull over and slow down to a creep so that we can pass each other without the mirrors bumping and stuff, because those roads are so narrow. The answer to the problems on Main Street is not to funnel that traffic into those very narrow roads. It's a safety concern, and it's also destroying what we want to protect, which is the historic district. One way to help with some of that, and it's even mentioned as a goal, is to reconnect isolated and disinvested communities by removing barriers and creating new connections. It sounds counterintuitive, but closing the railroad crossings at Cobb Street and, oh gosh, what's the other one further down? Yes, would actually help, because what's on the other side is not developed. And it would force the issue of creating another way to get from the north side of town to the south side of town, rather than funneling traffic through the historic district. If we really want to reconnect, and this is probably not going to be a popular idea in some quarters, but if we really want to reconnect neighborhoods that have been isolated, I know the railroads control the crossings, but I think the city could offer to close 2 and open 1 at Bernie Street, because the Canaan neighborhood has been cut off. And if we want to reconnect it, that's one way to do it, is by opening that crossing back up. I know it's probably not a popular thing to do, but I think it's something that should be considered. When we talk about connectivity, one idea that might help is to make a concerted effort to focus some of the commercial growth on the north side of town, you know, out around the airport area and that, instead of everybody having to come through town to go to the 441 strip for the majority of their commercial needs. If we could encourage some commercial growth on the north side, that would help alleviate some of the traffic. It won't begin to solve the problem, but it would help a little bit. Finally, one thing that that the traffic study talked about is parking. Kudos to getting that lease where you can repave that parking lot next to Amici's. Kudos to you on that. That helps a lot downtown. But years ago, there were plans for a parking deck that went away, but we still need some additional parking in downtown. If you shop downtown or go out to eat downtown, you know that. And I suggest to you that the city needs to look at ways to improve the parking situation. That may not be the construction of a deck. Decks are expensive, we know that. I think it could be done and look attractive and look appropriate to the historic district. I've seen some in Athens that do. That may not be the answer, it may be too expensive. But the Downtown Development Authority currently holds over 45 properties. Those are not on the tax rolls. There's no tax revenue coming in from those properties. Property should be made available to the city for acquisition to build parking. 45 properties sitting there off the tax rolls. Surely something in there is appropriate for parking. And I would encourage you to look at that. Again, we realize, we all realize that there's not a infinite amount of funding that could go into many of the projects here. And I encourage you to really put the emphasis on the construction of the bypass. That's the only long-term solution to Madison's traffic problems. As an aside, I came down Old Post and tried to turn to Central and tried to take a left-hand turn. And after no fewer than 30 cars passed while I was sitting there with my blinker on, after no fewer than 30 cars passed in both directions with no opportunity to turn left, we turned right and cut through a residential neighborhood to go circle around back to get to downtown. And we want to try to avoid that. Let's keep our neighborhoods neighborhoods so that children can play and people can walk their dogs and neighbors can visit with one another in the street, as we often do. without fear of being run over. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray, for your comments. Is there anyone else? I'd just like to add to your first comment, and I can say our city manager has been working with GDOT about the bypass, and we can thank him for working so diligently to make sure that happens. Not now, but hopefully in the future. Are there any more comments?
Hello, I'm Paul Roman, 292 Academy Street, and I've been here my wife and I have been in Madison moving on 40 years, so just a general comment I'd like to make to the City Council, and that is that over that period of time, even though the city has not grown that much, the fabric of governance seems to have changed considerably and become much more formalized and bureaucratized, and things happening that people only find out about after the fact. And I think you need, from my point of view, from that historical point of view, and from the point of view of people who are constantly talking about the glories of Madison as a community, I think you need to constantly have on your mind communication as a number one point. And right now, this was not meant to be my first point, but I'll go ahead and make it. It seems that a lot of the changes that take place in town occur only if one has the knowledge to read the legal sections in the paper, and oftentimes those involving planning and change there's a statement that Rule 68945 is going to be changed to rule something totally incomprehensible. And so rarely do you find a clear statement of what's actually going to be done. An example of that is, and one of my neighbors is here who is more affected by it than I am, although she's right across, her property is right across the street from mine, and that is the sleight of hand that was used to change the section of Academy Street and Central Avenue between there and Washington Street into a commercial district. And when people inquired about it, they were just said, too bad it happened, you weren't around to check. So the recommendation I want to put before you, which is kind of off today's agenda, but not really, because it's about communication. You have an excellent media, namely the newsletter that you send out to everybody who purchases water or gas from the city, which I would assume represents almost the entire citizenry of the property owners in the community. And that currently is used for a variety of purposes. I don't want to comment on what it's currently used for. Everybody knows it if they've looked at it. That could be such an effective organ for communicating exactly what City Council is up to. And it doesn't need to be, it could be a longer piece, it could be printed on less expensive paper, it would not have to be multicolored, and you could put down the specifics on every single item that is being dealt with in terms of change in the community. And I think that I can't think of a more valuable instrument, which currently is not being used, I don't think, to the effect that it could be used. And it even would be better than the newspaper, because there's no obligation that anyone has to subscribe to the newspaper or read the newspaper, and certainly only the most bored of us read through each of those items that are in the legal section each week. So I just wanted to throw that suggestion out along with this idea of broader communication. The other point I have, two very specific points, and this, last time I was here and got to speak, I spoke after a group from Calvary Baptist Church who was sitting in the same row that I'm sitting in today. They brought up to you the issue of the traffic situation at the corner of Academy Street in Washington. And they mentioned, as people all over town have mentioned over and over, and I discovered, as people at your various citizen groups that you've organized and had together since somebody kindly published the abstracts of what people mentioned at those citizen meetings, this issue of the dangerousness of that corner, again, a trivial issue compared to the elephant of this transportation plan, but nonetheless, the diagonal parking that's permitted in front of Amici's precludes any eyesight from traffic pulling out, particularly if one were to abide by the crosswalk that's marked there. I was almost T-boned for the third time the other day, trying to find my way across. This could be easily corrected by either eliminating those parking spaces or attempting to make them parallel parking spaces instead of the diagonal spaces that are permitted now. And it is, to me, as a citizen, a bit provoking to see my fellow citizens, including that group from Calvary, having said it so clearly to you last time, bringing this up over and over and over. And the only thing I can conclude is if some artificial intelligence agency were to put all of the city minutes into a computer and say, what do these people worship? They'd say the city of Madison worships parking. That is their most important thing, and downtown parking. Well, when somebody gets really hurt there due to that one particular problem, parallel parking will solve the problem, but it will take away blessed parking spaces. And again, I see, as was just mentioned, they are sacred, and I think we have to reach a balance. But this issue, a small one, is to me demonstrative of unresponsiveness. And it really is provoking, because it is something that could be done easily, but it's just, with numerous citizens bringing it up, it's just been ignored. Now, the specific point I want to raise, going back to my neighbor myself, I think she would share this concern. In the current plan, as apparently was the case when we got zoned commercial, there's this little tiny statement and a little tiny gold dot, which you have a microscope, you could possibly see it, on the end of where Central Avenue enters the cemetery. And there's a statement that I don't even know the language that's used, something's gonna be done there. Well, again, as I see it, once this transportation plan is passed, there's going to be authority to go ahead with all this stuff. The hundreds and hundreds of things that are mentioned in this overall plan. Can anybody tell me what that gold dot is representing? There's going to be something about a crosswalk, which there's no crossing there. I don't know what, do the planning people know about this?
I'm happy to look into it.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
It says there are hundreds and hundreds of items.
No. There is, no, in your planning report that you wrote, it says there will be a change introduced at the entrance of the cemetery at the end of Central Avenue. You don't know what that is?
I don't recall anything off the top of my head, but I'll be happy to look into it.
Well, that's kind of demonstrative of the concern of the community, is that, at least from my perspective, aren't we, with this transportation plan, if you agree to it, isn't it all going to be able to happen? Is that true or false?
That's false.
It's false?
That's not how plans work.
Well, again, I don't know what will the plan, the approval of the plan will allow those things to happen or not?
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be going back and forth.
You're right, no, like to, I think,
Just comments, you know.
we take the comments and then maybe we can, maybe staff can address some of those.
Absolutely.
In general. So rather than have, if I may, or
Sure,
Mayor, you.
sure.
Well, I do have a question. If I'm raising the question about this item that's in the plan. It's in the plan, and you evidently are going to vote at some point to either approve or disapprove this plan. Is that true or false?
That's
Are you
true.
going to vote on it?
Not tonight, but
Never?
we will eventually, yes.
Okay, if you vote on it, are all the items in there approved?
Okay. If I may, Paul, the public comment for us, don't get frustrated. We're going to answer everything you need. We're going to answer, but this is not in the public comment forum, or Jay can address it perhaps too. If you would, Jay, elaborate on what the procedure is, or our public.
This is the opportunity for the public to express concerns to council, and they're offering, and planning department is too, to follow up with any answers that you may need.
But what public comment then is not necessarily a debate, an exchange, and a question and answer.
Well, it's a question about governance.
We're taking notes. We're taking notes. Monica's taking notes. Everything you're raising will be addressed.
Okay, so we don't know, as a citizen, you can't tell me whether approval of this plan authorizes all the actions that are in the plan. You can't say yes or no to that.
We can say only in this format is just a question, is just you raising the issues, bringing to our attention your comments, and the responses will come. The responses aren't coming now, so it's not our job to sit here and go, yes, Paul, and let me explain this, and let me explain this. So we are taking your comments, we're making notes, and we will get responses to you following all of the public comment.
Again, I don't want to be
Sorry.
offensive, but
Sorry.
When it's our turn, we can get this. We just found it on the plan. What do you
Okay.
referring to?
Okay.
All right, so once we have all public comment, planning will step in and come in and start addressing some of this stuff if
will at any point we learn what
Yep.
council is going to do?
yes?
Then you'll announce it? I mean, you'll announce, I don't know what your yes or no vote means, and you can't tell me. That's what you're saying?
Paul,
If that's what you're saying, I'll stop.
the way I envision it, Paul, it'll come to us in a public hearing at a council meeting. We will pass or deny the plan, but it doesn't prevent us from taking out parts of it at that time that we don't like. We vote to approve the plan, however, we might take out the specific reference that you're talking about, or some other one. We'll pass it, but it doesn't mean that we have to pass it intact. If the majority of us wants to say, okay, this is great, except this we don't like, and we can take it out at that point. And there'll be a public hearing at that meeting, is the way I understand it.
And just so you know as well, and again, all the notes will be taken, everybody's comments are gonna get addressed. But let me just say this, the plan is our future guide. It is not like we are gonna sit down and go, all right, we've passed it, all right, let's start tearing up streets, that's not it. It's gonna mesh with our comprehensive plan. So as we go forward and as we are working on our update of our comprehensive plan, this newly adopted transportation plan will mesh with that, and it will be our guide to future planning.
Okay, but I think my question would be shared by my fellow citizens. Does this mean that each item in here will be considered again at a later date, or by passing the plan and meshing it with your finances and your other things, you have the authority to go forward? I found a trivial issue, a small issue, which planning couldn't even recognize, and I'm sure there's many, many others like that in the overall, that huge statement. I mean, it's an elephant. And so again, it's a simple question. I think I heard you, Eric, saying you will be able to amend the plan, but that still means that after you amend it, whatever you pass goes forward without further consideration.
Well, I
Further
believe,
citizen input is what
well, I
I'm
believe
saying.
we would have a public hearing, would we not, Mayor, at the time that prior to approving it?
Is this the last public hearing comments, Jay? I'm thinking before it goes
My
back.
understanding is there will be more on this, but before adoption. But maybe to get to the point, and I hope I'm interpreting your question correctly, sir. When you approve the plan, it is a guiding tool. And when individual projects arise that you all want to do, you'll have to approve those individual projects again. Because you're gonna have to approve the contract, you're gonna have to approve the expenditures of money, all of that stuff. There won't be a public hearing on that, but you will have to approve the individual projects, assuming you're expending money.
Okay, well then that's an answer. So what the answer is that what would be passed here is essentially accepted as a plan, and that authority then is vested in you to approve individual items. I just want to understand the procedure. I think that, am I understanding it correctly? Okay, well it's really all I wanted to know.
Quickly, your reference to planning missing something or not, did you mean that yellow dot? Is that what you're referring to?
No, it wasn't just the dot, it was in the text as well. It was in the text, it said, at Central Avenue, the
Okay,
entrance.
no, but is that what your reference was in planning missing it or overlooking it just now? You
No,
made a
no,
comment.
no, you received a letter, each of you received a letter from the HSC listing a whole series of concerns which Mrs. Murray was not able to present. And I certainly hope that, given the limited time that she had, I certainly hope that all those issues that she raised in there will be considered part of the public record, and you're just not ignoring those.
No, but.
Because if I could, I'd stand here and repeat every one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, what the comment
No,
you just
my
meant a minute
concerns
ago
are not
seemed-
limited to that issue.
No, that's right. No, but you just made a comment that basically reflected poorly on our planning staff, that they didn't get something right, or I don't remember what.
No, I did not, they didn't understand part of the text of what
That's fine.
they said, that's
My
all.
other comment, just to let you know, it is, having that part of Academy going up to West Washington in the commercial district, that's not sleight of hand. You made that comment. You said this.
Yeah, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, it was
Well,
sleight of hand.
Just so you know, it's.
Because the residents who were affected by it were not informed.
Oh, no one rezoned anything. It's always been that way.
Always, since
For-
1809? Okay, well, anyway, I'd go back to my original first comment about governance in Madison.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry to be peeved, but I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments from the public?
Julie? Oh.
Good evening. My name is Diane Allman. I live at 258 Academy Street, and so, yes, it is kind of appropriate for me to speak following my neighbor, Paul, who I haven't had a chance to talk to in a while, so we did not coordinate this. But I do think the gold dot he's referring to is on page 43 of the transportation plan, where it shows that at the entrance of the cemetery, there would be a proposed intersection improvement with no details as to what that means. So that clarifies that. I certainly thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to have this opportunity to make comments and come before you with our concerns. I also want to express my appreciation for the fact that a lot of our comments and concerns were addressed and are reflected in the current draft of the transportation plan dated September 19th. In particular, the proposal to convert a section of Academy Street and First Street from Washington to Central, to convert those to one-way and add public parking along the side, that has been removed from the transportation plan. Now, I would like to ask a question, so like Paul, I'm a little confused since, where is our opportunity to ask questions? we are allowed to make comments, but where is our forum for asking questions? My question would be, when the details of that proposal to do the one-way streets and the additional on-street parking, when it was posted to the city website the day after the first town hall meeting back in May, the section that details that parking and one-way streets, the first page of that was under the heading of downtown development, the downtown development area. So my question is, now that this proposal for this additional parking has been taken from the transportation plan because it really didn't relate to transportation, it was focused on parking, does that mean that the proposal is no longer going to be considered by the city at all, that that particular plan has been put aside completely? Or does it mean that it's going to come up again to city council by way of the downtown development area or the Main Street Department or some other group? Is that a question you're able to answer? And if not, tell me, how can I get that question answered?
And I would suggest, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we talk about this at our last public hearing, and you guys was asked to take it off? They was asked to take it off.
Yes.
And it's off.
It's off.
And it's off. It's not on the transportation plan.
It's out of the transportation plan, but does that mean that it's out of consideration of the city, or is it going to come back considering?
It's not in the transportation plan.
Right.
It's not, so that,
But is it
not
being
coming back.
shifted to another?
it hasn't gone
area?
anywhere else. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's out. We respected the points that our public made. Yes, no, it's not gonna come back and sneak up on you.
That's,
It's not the transportation plan, so we start planning and we start going forward, working on our comprehensive plan and trying to decide what projects we want first. That's not even, that's nowhere to be found. And no, who else? It is the
and it's not to be found in the transportation plan.
Right. What other where?
Well, the plan had the downtown development heading on it, so.
Well, there's still
so
a
they-
downtown development.
Yes, and so could they potentially
They don't do
say-
transportation.
And that point was made at the town hall in May when a resident asked, what is the rationale for doing this? And the transportation consultant, stood up and said, well, that really, wasn't part of the transportation plan. It was added in, and it doesn't have anything to do with traffic flow or transportation. It has to do with parking, yet it showed up in the transportation plan. So the fact that it's been removed from the transportation plan, which, thank you for listening to the feedback, but does that mean that it's a dead issue, or is it just removed from this particular document called transportation plan?
Diane, my understanding of that was there was a misstatement by someone that block of Academy from Central to, what is it, Burnett? What is right in front of Calvary Baptist,
Right.
that little, that one block, under no map that we have has any commercial component.
Right, and I'm going to
It's
address that
completely
next.
residential, and there was
Yes.
some statement made that wasn't the case. I think that was done in error, and that has
Yes.
been rescinded.
And
There's
that's-
no,
I'm the one that made the statement.
okay, and that statement was in error, is that correct?
It was.
Okay, and I think the Director of Planning rescinded that as an error. So there's no map showing that block as anything other than residential.
And that's not the concern that I have tonight. My concern is the concept a dead concept, or is it just out of the transportation plan to appear to come back to City Council from another source?
I don't think it will.
Okay.
Will it?
And to
Well,
address
then-
what you're bringing up, which I did plan to address as well, to make it publicly known that information provided at the May 5th Town Hall meeting regarding that section of Academy Street being zoned commercial. It was stated at that meeting that while those homes, it appeared to be a residential area, it in fact was commercial, And then it was then published in the Morgan County Citizen, quoting our planning director saying, "There is no parking proposed for any residential zones." And that, I did investigate that further, asking for clarification of the zoning of my lot. I sent a letter to all of you, which was some time back now, because there's been some delay in continuing this conversation, to clarify to you, but I would also like to make it public, that it has been clarified that those 6 residences that were being impacted by that parking are in fact zone residential, and that the information of it being zone commercial was in fact incorrect. And thank you for acknowledging that. But not publicly. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. There are no more public
Public now.
comments.
I am Julie Jenkins. I live at 800 Crawford Street, and I have been out of town for the last 2 months, so I really am kind of out of the loop on this. And the only thing I wanted to bring up was about a roundabout at the Triangle. I think roundabouts are a wonderful idea, but I live on Crawford Street, and to get out of Crawford Street to turn left, and a lot of times to turn right, it is just a long wait. And I don't know that a roundabout is going to help me much. I think it's going to keep things going a lot more so that there's not a break as much as there has been. I can kind of tell when the light changes out at Walmart, and it just, has a flow of traffic. But I think that's a problem, and I really appreciate what you all do for us. And I thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments. Any more comments?
I'll fill it in later. Good evening. I'm Annie Hunt Burris. I live at 912 Dixie Avenue, and I thank you for the thoroughness. I mean, the series of public hearings you've been doing. Transportation is my background, and that's how I got to go to Georgia Tech, was Federal Highway Fellowship. I would like to request that with this plan, as you update it, that where all the amendments are, I wonder if that couldn't be embedded in the document itself. It's a little bit confusing to have to say page whatever. I mean, typically, Jim Malinowski, you got a doctorate. When you do your dissertation, it's real easy to edit, and you see where the changes are. I'm just requesting that we could be able to see that so we could see over time how it is changing. So you see what the end product is. Does that make sense? I was pretty thrilled to read in the newspaper about the proposed bypass. I would love to, would that not be, this is a question, will that be embedded in this transportation plan? Right now there's just a real broad arrow that was presented back in May. Could you please comment on that? Because that is a major move forward to help stop all the truck traffic that comes through downtown.
And I believe this is just in the planning stages. We know it's going to take years in order for this to transpire.
I'm sorry?
This is just in the planning stages.
Right, and so this is a plan, and that's in the planning stages. Yes or no, will that be integrated together?
I don't think so. It won't be. This would be all by itself.
Why wouldn't one have those two together? Because that is the major change that transforms all of your transportation planning, isn't it?
And first of all, we have to wait on GDOT to make some decisions.
Right.
See, the city cannot make any decisions until GDOT.
No, but would it be in your plan, your recommended plan?
It won't be in this recommended plan, I don't think. Will it, city manager? It won't be in this record.
Well, I certainly will defer to our planning department, but it already is in there.
Whether it's in there as significant as it needs to be is open for debate. It was suggested that we change the priority and make the bypass the first priority.
Yes.
They don't let me hold the crayon because I'm dangerous with it. But if I had the ability to hold the crayon for one day, I would not only change the priority, I'd change the font, I'd bold it, I'd underline it, I'd probably give it its own page.
It's very good looking, though, as it is.
But all of that can be debated by this council, and they can decide how much of a priority they wish to make it.
Well, if we are focused on substance and not just style, that is the most pivotal thing in your city planning that you've done in years. It will definitely impact downtown and also the feeder neighborhoods. So that brings up my last point. Thank you so much for getting a lot of resurfacing done. It's very important. We don't have all the potholes we used to have, so thank you very much. I read with great pleasure that somebody is going to be redoing, resurfacing Main Street coming through town, and that will take like 30, 60, maybe 90 days to implement. I'm wondering where the traffic will go. And my assumption is it's going to probably jump into the historic district on Old Post Road and other roads. And there's no speed bumps there now that used to be there. I'm just wondering, how is that incorporated into the plan? Where is that traffic going to go to?
I guess that's a question for our city manager.
It's an excellent question, and it is a topic that is being debated and discussed right now with the state. And as soon as, very shortly, we will begin the process of communications, which was discussed tonight, to do everything possible that, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, it's going to be a major inconvenience. We all know that. But the details are being worked out now. I wish I could answer your question tonight, but I can't. But as soon as we have the details and we've worked it out with the state, we will be announcing it on numerous occasions and in every avenue possible so that citizens are aware of what they're going to be facing.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if I may, just to let you know, I haven't let everybody know, but I'm not trying to hide information. There will be speed bumps on Old Post Road.
Okay.
The whole resurface, that is, they have been ordered, is what I'm told. So ordered must mean that those are the ones that are installed as opposed to built. And they apparently, you just don't, call up Amazon and they ship them the next day. But we will have them in place before Thanksgiving.
Oh, good. So it'll
So
happen
they-
before the
Oh, yeah.
Main
So
Street.
they are,
Okay.
at any rate, so everybody can rest easy on Old
Okay.
Post. You'll get
Okay.
the speed bump, so that'll be very nice.
Thank you very much. Well, the transportation, just to summarize, is like the cardiovascular system of your economy, your economic base. And so when you have heart attacks of when there's bad parking issues, as Paul referred to, or big trucks coming through town and the big turns, that really impacts your overall economy. You could say that the neurological system of the economy today is our internet. And I'm wondering, is the internet also part of our planning for transportation? Because it is transportation of information. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just add one comment. As we talk about the prioritizing of the bypass, we all know how important that is. We quite often forget kind of phase 2 of that bypass that is really equally important, and that is our ability to take over control of Main Street from GDOT. Once we have the alternative route, we can take over Main Street. We can determine where we want crosswalks. We can determine where we want stoplights if we want stoplights. And so that's a key farther down the road aspect of getting the bypass.
Okay, so that makes me ask one last question. Previously, I asked if the police chief and the sheriff were engaged in reviewing the plan. I don't know if that has happened or not. They were not when the public was first listening to it. So I think the police chief and the sheriff need to definitely be engaged in this plan, and I would want to hear their analysis of this plan. And then, I swear this is the last thing. I used to manage the DOT state board meetings and work for the commissioner. And I know for a fact that if a city comes in and they don't come in with their county, your project's not going to be reviewed. So my question is, could you please update us on how things are going with the city and the county in a coordinated role going to DOT? Because you're exactly right, Eric, that turn until it's not dominated by the state and it becomes a local street again, they're going to be telling you what to do or not. But they're not going to listen if the county's not going. So what's the status of our coordination with the county, the sheriff, and the police chief on this plan?
Thank you. It's an ongoing conversation between the city and the county. It's an ongoing conversation.
When you go to DOT, did y'all go together? Will you go together, the city and county? Because you will not get any state dollars, and which means probably federal dollars, unless you go together. That's just a fact. And fortunately, the chairman of the board of the state DOT this year is our congressional district board member for DOT. And I hope that we are also going and talking to him. He just lives up in Athens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, I would ask our staff to make.
I was just way at the back. I'd just like to talk with you very briefly about a specific matter that's of real personal interest to me, and that is the invasion of signs and painting and marking. We're just painting and powdering up the historic district too much in terms of protecting the integrity of the settings in the district, which are part of what is supposed to be protected. The roads are painted. There are innumerable signs throughout the district. So are they needed? I don't think so. Not to the extent we keep pushing them in there. We have the historic markers, fabulous. For some time now, the Antebellum Trail markers have been up. Then sometime within the last year or so, dozens of signs, orange and green, about yay high, popped up all over the district. A preservation walking trail. And I walk my dog a lot, and I can tell you, I don't know if you've read, I have reported this, but from Central Avenue, by the Methodist, walk with me, Methodist Church, down Old Post, take a ride at the Miles, take another ride at Lennon Whitey's, come back up to Central. There are 18 signs planted telling tourists how to go around 2 blocks. We are littered with signs and painting, and just putting inconvenience and traffic hazards aside, except for one. There are also, between 4 and 6, just black planted posts, apparently just like planted tripping hazards around. And these are all in that area between, if you have sidewalks, they're between the sidewalk and the street, or if not, they're on corners. It's too much. We're supposed to be protecting the aesthetics, the settings of the historic district, and it's overwhelmed. There are plenty of maps. There are maps on tell them that they've walked 4/10 of a mile. Maybe somebody could get it in the app instead of planning two signs or 4 signs to tell them that. So that's aesthetics. Then we come to the question of bike lanes or bike routes, and more signage for them, of course, would be required. So fundamentally, we don't need bike lanes or bike routes through the historic district. First of all, it's a matter of law. Bikes can ride on any street they want to ride on, and they know that. We get bikes all the time through the historic district. They know they can be there, and they go there. And if you want to go around one, you can go around one. You pop a bike lane in there that automobiles have to respect. You've now converted it to a one-way street, so you're slowing down traffic. People can't go around bikes. If there's utility work to be done on the side of the street that doesn't contain it, then cars have to go into the bike lane. That's just asking for trouble. Bike routes aren't necessary. All these signs for walkers aren't necessary. Pages 27 and 28 of this very revised plan show you that walkers and bikers consider the level of comfort in the historic district to be of the highest level. We don't need them. And they're not good for the district in terms of appearance or in terms of traffic flow. So I don't have a great solution for this problem of overpopulation of painting and signs, and other than please just don't do it. Just don't do this. It's wrong for the district. And you know, people in the district, if people have a question about a property or a way to go, I get asked, somebody will stop and ask me, I'm out walking my dog, or I don't walk them, but going to walk with my grandchildren. People will stop and ask you a question. Okay, I'll answer. I mean, I'm happy to answer, show you another way to go around or whatever. We don't need this. So I would just ask you to keep in mind, it's not as big issues of traffic surrounding the city, but it's important to us, the people who live there and who help those tourists all the time get around. So thank you for your consideration on that.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Ellis. I live at 802 Bacon Street. I really have a question, and then I guess really the concern. And to the lady before me, my question is really around greenways and bike routes. When you look on page 45 of the greenways and bikeways, the first question I have is, of the dotted green lines and where they're all moving really from I-20 over and into the city and so forth, what is the makeup of that path going to be?
I guess that's a question for planning. She added to her list.
So, okay, we're going to hear that tonight?
Not tonight, no.
Okay.
Well, I think she's, yeah.
Do it tonight? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll hear it tonight.
Yeah, so because the concern is, now the concern of it is, you know, whether it's going to be concrete, asphalt, or a path kept up, it's going to require attention. And when you start giving more and more pathways from point A to point B, you have to put more attention on making sure that those things are kept up, they're clean, they're trash packed up. And then it really brings to the bigger concern that I would just voice when we talk about safety, right? So I-20 is a high traffic area. Obviously, we have a lot of truck stops, we have a lot of truckers, we have a lot of traffic that's coming in and out. When we start looking at the path from the bikeways and green paths that come from I-20 and into the city, just the concern that I have is what does that do to the amount of folks that will be coming into our backyards, those that live in the downtown area. I don't want to say it's not, I like the idea. I'm an avid bike rider myself. I use our paths all the time. I'm concerned about the foot traffic and what would come from the city, maybe not with best of intentions. And so when you open up multiple pathways for those folks to come from the interstate on one side, and then you got 441, and then you got the other side. I guess my one wish is that we look at maybe not extending that pathway all the way down to I-20 where there is high traffic and folks that are coming into the city because those areas, these pathways, aren't necessarily maintained. They're not kept out. They don't have oversight from police and our safety folks. So just as a concerned parent, just who's coming in that area, that's my one concern.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. If staff are ready to give us some final comments? Any more comments from the public? If not, staff, are you ready to give us some final comments?
Do my very best, as you always do. Well, I'll try. So, my name is Monica Callahan. I live at 829 South Main Street. I'm a citizen, and I always buy inside of a historic district. So I hear a lot of my neighbors' concerns and comments, and I take those seriously. I'm going to try to work through the comments not as a rebuttal, because we're not here to debate a plan that we finished in May. What I am going to do is tell you why certain things were considered and discarded. I did not hear anything this evening that was not discussed at some point with either a member of the public or with our work groups. So I'm going to try to go down those. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. If I skip someone's question and don't answer it directly, because I know we are all tired of hearing politicians sidestep questions, and we like direct answers these days. So if you'll write that down or bring it back up, raise your hand and say, if you didn't get to my question, I'll try my best to aim at it on point. Okay, so I'm going to start with the number one goal being the bypass. Have at it. They weren't ranked. We are more than happy to put the bypass at the top of the list so that for those who feel like it is a prioritization list, if it gives them comfort, that is easy to do, easy to change. The number one thing when John got here and we sat down in the temporary offices of City Hall and we had this discussion, he said, what's one of the best things that I could do for this community? What's the number one thing on the comp plan's list? And I said, if you get us the bypass, you'll be gold. So there is nobody in this room who has sat through more transportation hearings with frustrated citizens listening to us give them the palliative pat on the head that GDOT has been giving us for years. We're happy to push it to the top of the list. Let me tell you why we didn't rank them or put that one as the top of the list. The reason we didn't do so is because we did that in 2007, and everybody stopped talking or doing anything else regarding transportation. So we said, we know this one's out of our control. We know it's going to depend on GDOT taking care of things. We'll make sure it's in the priority list, but we didn't prioritize them in any specific order. If it gives great comfort to our citizens, please direct us to prioritize to the top. And we'll put it at the top, but we're not prioritizing any of the others unless you so direct it. To us, those are all important, but please bend over backwards, make every effort, have every public hearing, spend all your money to get us a bypass. There's nobody that's a higher endorser of that than someone who bought a home on Main Street, I assure you. Okay, I'm going to skip to Annie's comment for just a moment. She asked specifically, because it relates to the bypass, I'm trying to hit the bypass questions first. Annie specifically asked if the current proposal that's being discussed would make the plan, and the answer is no. And the reason it doesn't is because basically what the plan does is convey the idea. It conveys the idea that the community is desperate for and wants a bypass on the northern side. It does not say where that's going to go, because so far, I've heard 3 suggestions. I've seen 3 options, and GDOT has expressed, according to the city's engineer, interest in a different one than the one that we've put on the table as city-backed. So the idea is being communicated in the plan that we want to get from here to here, and had that occurred when they put the first bypass in, if it had gone on the north side, which was longer and would have cost more, that would have been smarter long-range planning, because it would have picked up both 83 and 441. But sometimes we don't make the smart decisions. Sometimes we make the quicker decisions or the more affordable decisions, and so the bypass was put on the low side of the community. So the answer is no, it will not appear in the plan, because it is not the only solution being considered, and it may not be the solution that GDOT endorses or picks. So we're just implying that we want to connect 83 and 441, and we would like that to be designated to keep truck traffic off of Main Street. We have already, under Barry Lurie, gotten the signs that are necessary to post the edge of the historic district. So at the moment that trucks can't come through our downtown, even if we had just a designated truck route, whatever the solution GDOT picks, the minute that happens, we can both enforce the speed limit on our main street, and we can deny trucks the downtown. And we can enforce the speed limit with no extra allowance, like a school district, because that's what the state law says we can do in the historic district. But in order to do that, we have to be able to control the speed and get speed warrants. So we've discussed that with the police department. I've argued with 2 previous police chiefs that we could do it, and we've already secured the signage. What we need now is a designated alternative route that is GDOT's discretion, not ours. So we can make it #1 item, and we can emphasize its importance, and we certainly can direct all necessary political efforts toward that endeavor, because I concur with Annie. It has been my experience, if you don't come as a coordinated effort, you don't even get listened to. I believe before John arrived, the last answer was, if you've arrived in my office without the county, you should go home, essentially. I believe it was DeLetto that got that very surprising answer. Okay, so enough about the bypass. I'm sorry.
No, you're great.
And I'm
Appreciate it.
happy to stop after each item if you want to
No,
seek
no, no.
clarification or give an instruction.
Carry on. I just was going to make a comment just on the plan goals as listed. Personally, I realize they're not numbered. They're not anything. There's just a list of them. There's the icons next to them designating what those are.
Well, we just move it to the
For
top
me,
of the list.
Well, if we want, but I don't want it to have an idea that any of this is prioritized. I mean, I don't necessarily want to prioritize this list.
We still don't have to number it, but we can move it to the top of the list if that
Sure.
gives, if it conveys that it is the most important item, which we all know it is, right?
It is the most important.
Happy to do it, no
All right.
problem.
Thank you, Monica.
Yep. And that's an easy thing for us to ask our consultant to do. I'm just going to remind you that our consultant was working for the time period that was slotted for 6 months for our plan. So everything we do is a la carte, which leads me to Annie's second question. Why did the plan not already have all the changes in it? Because each time we asked them to make the changes, we have to redline the document, get it to them, they make the changes, they charge us an hourly rate. And so we're now past the contract period, we've paid the $75,000, and they've made the final edits. And so every time we change it, so what we did was we itemized all the extra changes, and they will go back and there will be one final document to review at the end. There will not be an addendum that people have to check for change. But we're just not using taxpayer dollars efficiently is what we're trying to do. And so that's one reason why I thank Molly for itemizing every period, every comma, every word choice, because we wanted there to be no accusation of lack of transparency. Okay. All right, so Let's see, I've addressed that. So I want to talk a little bit about the other items that are in the plan. One of the reasons the 2007 plan was not successful is it had a lot of items, but we were so busy talking about the bypass all the time, which wasn't slated until 2035 for even consideration, that none of the day-to-day small tasks that could get done to improve people's day-to-day living between 2007 and 2025 really got targeted for any work. And so one of the things we talked about early on with our group was, and with the consultants, is that we wanted to have measured, targeted, small-hanging fruit that we could work on while the politicians are chasing the big thing. We're not included in the bypass chasing. So it's not taking any of our time, so we do want to have transportation items that we can work on. And Ms. Murray is correct. Any diversion of funds to other things does keep us from having essential more bypass money. Most of the bypass is probably going to be funded by both federal and state funds, and probably another T-SPLOST, because the projects you've already committed to in sidewalks will take up a good bit of the T-SPLOST that's already there. Those are sidewalks y'all prioritized for neighbors that are already asking for fill-in sidewalks in Eric's district, for Beacon Heights, which has never had sidewalks, for Canaan, which can't actually use a safe sidewalk to get all the way to the rest of the community. So those 3 or 4 sidewalk projects were already budgeted. A couple of the other multimodal projects, like there's 2 trail projects in here. Those are because we're seeing the next generation use the arterial network differently, and they're asking for different things. And when they came and participated, they asked for those different things. And so we don't plan for one group of people. We try to listen to all of our citizens and take input from all of them. There was a lot of conversation about having safer bike routes and for having more pathways. So there is some multimodalness in the plan, but it's not meant to subvert, undermine, or distract from the bypass, because we know that that is the most important thing for our community. And for instance, Horse Branch, which we recently got a grant for, GDOT is paying for that with federal funds. They're now matching it with state funds. So we might also get some state funds to match those. It's not even using T-SPLOST dollars for the P&E. So as those things evolved, we just want you to know that there was a lot of discussion about how to address strollers and walkers and people who don't feel comfortable and safe walking in streets and have never had another option. So there is some of that in there. I'm not gonna deny that. We were looking for a real transportation plan, not just a GDOT plan. And that's why the City of Madison funded the last plan separately, and that's why you funded this plan separately. So there is some balance to that, looking at that. I'm gonna come and address, and I hope I get his name right, Mr. Ellis? Oh, thank you. So Mr. Ellis's comment was about greenways and bike rats, and since I talked modal just then, I'm gonna go ahead and hit that, if that's okay. All right. We already have bike routes that go all the way to the interstate. Those aren't new. Right now, they're share the road. So that's the bike route signage from GDOT, and it is on 441 with it. So this basically, the plan proposes, and this was something our transportation planner put on the table, that we really should take the city sidewalk that's beside it and make that city sidewalk, instead of 5 feet, make it 10 feet and give an alternative for bikes not to have to share the road. It does not provide new paths, it provides an alternative, so we have less pedestrian and bicycle and vehicular conflicts. So I hear the concern about the connectivity, but the connectivity is already there. It's just not as safe as it could be, which was one of the things that a lot of this discussion centered around was pedestrian safety, bicycle safety. We've had both pedestrians and bicyclists killed in the city. So we did talk a lot about that. We talked about safe crosswalks. So I want to hit just maintenance on that for just a moment. We have a great group called the Green Space Conservation Commission who had a volunteer day this weekend. They are the ones who are going to do most of our greenway management. And so they're volunteer groups, Dr. Zant, Carl Scott, he's our our expert. They come and do weekend warrior stuff and keep the greenways right. We're really not looking for the street department to do maintenance on those. They would do maintenance on the bike routes, and the bike routes are likely to be concrete. That's what the Path Foundation uses, so it's low maintenance. An alternative being considered, because not everything's perfect, an alternative being considered is asphalt, because asphalt is friendly to bicyclists. I keep trying to say bikers, and I'm trying not to say bikers, but it's also friendly to joggers. It's actually easier on your knees. Y'all aren't in your 50s yet, but by the time you get to your 50s, if you have jogged on concrete, there's a marked difference with jogging on asphalt. So the board that will be making that recommendation to the mayor and council will be the Green Space Group. Please come, express your concerns, express your interest, and please do so. They would love to have you participate or give positive solutions. Did that answer all your questions? Great. Let's see. Okay. I tried to group topics so that I wouldn't go off topic. I know y'all weren't planning to hear a lot, but there's seemed to be a lot of questions this evening. Hit that one. Okay, roundabout. All right, so the intersection where all of us jokingly call it the Death Triangle, which is about 200 feet from my front door, so please let's not call it that. I get to watch police lights all the time. Mr. Anderson's solution feels svelte, right? Roundabouts, all right. But I can assure you, having done Section 4F work as a professional preservationist, a roundabout will never get through the federal review process. It will be a $3 million deal, and it will take part of Honeymoon's front yard, and I can't think Dan and Randy. It'll take part of Dan and Randy's front yard, and it will take out the whole interior of the green space as well. That might be preferable to many people in our community, but that's part of the National Register District, and for the very same reason that the senior center could not put parking in their front yard. For those of y'all who were here, if you remember, the senior center planned to put all their parking in the front yard and the senior center at the far back. Preservation Commission made the call to the state. The state said, that's not going to pass Section 4F. So we did talk about a roundabout there. We talked about roundabouts in several places in our community. We've had people talk about it at the Gateway. We've got a problem with 5th Street there. Both of those ends are National Register District. We will not get that past Section 4F, and we don't have the disposable income for a $3 million roundabout. If we've got $3 million, we need to be thumping that at the bypass. Talk about distraction. So it's not that it's not a good solution, but it won't fit. As soon as Mr. Anderson sent us the idea, we did try it, just like the one where he proposed the bypass running through Pritchard Farm. Again, same 4F considerations, and it won't get through. And maybe people have different information about that, but I did those professionally before I came to work for the city and for the city of Savannah, trying to get routes in through the historic district. The alternative mitigation measures will not let that happen. We're going to have a problem with that. So the denigration of the historic district prohibits the turnabout, and still didn't help Ms. Jenkins. I'm always looking for a way to help her out. I pick up trash in her yard. Okay, so slowing the traffic on Main Street with the median. Okay, so let's talk about the divided median for a moment. We only have 3 lanes. John, I told you I was only going to take 30 minutes. I know you're hating me, man. There were lots of questions. So the divided median was both put on the table, discarded, and put back on the table for several reasons. The first thing to know about it is if it's done, it's a long-range plan, right? Second, it was added for aesthetics. Third, it's not uninterrupted. It has specific turning pieces that it still allow turning at our grid system. What makes our traffic efficient is the grid, not Main Street being a collector. So it would have turning points and places to pull over. Now, it would not address people pulling over onto what we call the parkway and what GDOT calls the vehicle recovery area. We know that our post office loves to make spots along there. It won't help that, and I'm not saying that it will, but I want to be clear, it's not a continuous meeting. If you've been to Fitzgerald, LaGrange, Savannah, you will notice that they all have breaks at the one block spot. Did talk to Sean about it a lot, because not only are they milling Main Street, but when they do, they're doing a lot of sewer replacement work down the center, because the sewer's all down the middle. The only place where we don't have 3 lanes in the historic district is where the ponders fought to the ground to make sure it didn't get widened. And so that happened in front of Hill Park. You'll notice that from Hill Park to Honeymoon and the edge of the historic district, it's not 3 lanes, because that was one of the considerations. So if we are able to do it, we may see some beautification in terms of trees and small shrubs. It actually makes the street safer in terms of turning. But I thought slowing down traffic on Main Street was actually the goal. And so our transportation expert says it will do all of that. And Molly and I are not transportation experts. That's why we hired somebody. And so we're going to defer to their expertise, because this is what they do for a living every day. Again, that's a long-term goal. I don't see the city having pocket change for that one for a long time. We might try out a section of it, but it should say long range. If it doesn't, we need to change it to say long range, because that one's the most elective, but it's the one Molly's the most passionate about. Okay, let's see, did that one already? Did that one? Dixie as a collector, I understand people don't like the term, but it's a classification term that's used in the transportation planner world. We didn't choose the terms. It's based on the features of the road, and they classify each of the roads. We didn't have anything to control that unless we change it and change all the other streets, and then it doesn't match standard transportation language. So that is, what do you attorneys call it? A term of art? It's a term of art, even if people don't like what it implies. So we would defer to our transportation expert, who said these are the terms you use for these things. So let's see. Y'all speak up if I skip something. So parking, let's hit that. We removed parking from the plan. Seems to confuse people, frustrate people. I misspoke, and if that needs a public retraction, happy to do that. At no point did I claim to have perfect recall of every city ordinance or every city plan. So I misspoke. What I was thinking of was when we redid the Main Street overlay, but at no point has that street been rezoned. There are residential houses on that street, and I misspoke. Monica Callahan misspoke. I made a mistake. Do it every day. So what we did say is that it won't be part of this plan, and that's true. And the reason I was quibbling a little bit when asked is because you can't commit for any future council what they will or will not do about parking. Parking is going to need a solution. But what I can say today is that while I'm staffing DDA for the next 2-3 years, DDAs can't bring anything to you like that. So you don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about DDA sneaking up on you, because DDA doesn't control the city streets, city council does. One of the reasons that was discussed and considered early on by the work group was because of the complaints of the safety at Academy. And so one of the solutions that makes that a safer intersection is for it to be a turn-in only and not an in and an out. So it wasn't just about parking. Parking was the bonus because we were all feeling the pressure of the McFadden lot going away. And we have it for another 5 years. So I won't be here by then, but Diane, I can give you a soft assurance that it doesn't need to come back up from planning for 5 years, because right now that's been addressed by the McFadden lease, unless the council decides that they've got other pressures they have to address. But again, neither the city planner nor the council can promise what any future elected official or city official will do. It's always in their power and on the table. Let's see, did that one? Did that answer your questions directly? Good. So there should be no parking addressed. If there's anything left in there, it should be nominal as like a sidebar about how it functions with transportation. But if anybody sees anything else that we missed, we're not perfect, let us know. There is no intent to address parking, prioritize it, or even treat it as something that is valued. You're going to hear a lot about that, I think, from the merchant arena eventually, and you're going to have some hard decisions to make, but they won't be part of our transportation plan, and there shouldn't be anything forthcoming from DDA. Oh, that's a good one while I'll stop on DDA for just a moment. Okay, so one of the things I have promised both Councilmember Joyce and Councilmember Malinowski is that we will have a review of the property that DDA owns, what it was bought for, how much is surplus, where it's sitting. There is almost no land that's owned in the downtown development area except for where it overlaps the URA, which is across the street. That is where the city spent $500,000 to build the parking lot that's there that is not currently used. Adding more parking right there will not help, but they would certainly entertain a deck if the city would see fit to fund it. It was not pulled by the DDA, it was pulled by the city manager because the city had no intention of funding it. So I'm not going to let DDA get beaten up around the ears about something that was not their decision. David said we don't have money to fund it, and so DDA considered other alternatives that involved the developer funding the parking that they were going to need. So in the meantime, expect that an upcoming work session will review DDA's parcels because I don't think anybody wants to see 300 cars parked up behind the water tower to be able to walk to downtown to shop and walk back to college to park. That's not realistic, and I think maybe I could help y'all see where their properties are dispersed at. So I will do that coming up, and I hope that at least will give you a moment of accountability that is coming. I can't do those tonight. Let's see. Julie, I wrote something down that just says 6-month plan. What did you mean by that? Oh, yeah. Maybe I wrote it down the wrong space. Please excuse me. Annie, did I get all of your questions?
I'm still wondering if we've had impact and inputs by the police chief and the sheriff.
Okay, so we've engaged the police in terms of just speed. That's it. No, they just enforce speed. But we can certainly review that by them. Happy to do that, but they're the speed component, not the safety component. The traffic engineer is qualified to speak to both speed and safety, so they're the ones who we ran it by, but I don't have any concern of sharing it with either party. That's not a problem. We can do that before it goes to the Planning Commission, which leads me. Oh, yeah, okay.
The railroads.
I'm sorry?
The railroads, I'm speaking on behalf of Church of the Advent and railroad crossings coming over Cobb.
Coming up.
Okay.
I'm on it. So just back to the idea of 2 more inputs. We got time to do that. We're already 6 months over the planning window. Happy to get that. I want to be clear that no plan is required to go to the Planning Commission. Went back and reread the zoning law just to make sure that we understand that. There is no state requirement. There is no public hearing requirement. There is no requirement that it goes to the Zoning Commission. We're not trying to dodge any of that. What it does say is that any plan, let's call it the water reservoir plan, the comp plan, the urban renewal plans we're working on, any of those, it says that the council has the discretion to ask for comment from the board. So we took your instructions that Eric expressed very well at the last meeting, and we have docketed it for the Planning Commission. But I want to be clear, planning staff has missed no requirement of anything that has to be done.
If I could just add something to that. It wasn't, I really personally have no preference whether it goes to planning and zoning or not. I don't think our council has either. When I read that ordinance that you're referring to, it seemed clear to me that it was required, and I'm kind of curious I mean, to me, it's a legal question. If it's required in our own zoning ordinance to go to planning and zoning, that's what we should do.
Well,
I don't see the
Molly's, when we go back over there, Molly's going to specifically read that section, because we don't ever want there to be an assumption or a gotcha moment by the public where they're assuming that we've skipped it. John promised transparency, and so we're offering that up. Anytime you want a plan to go to anybody for comment, including the police chief, we're happy to take it. We did not realize that that's what you wanted. What we did instead was include planning commissioners on the work group. Molly's going to bring me the section.
There was no implication that you had skipped a step in my comments. It just, as I read that in my layman knowledge of the law, it seemed like it was a requirement to go to planning and zoning, just like it was a requirement for comp plans.
Okay,
Now,
well,
but I'm not an attorney, and I would rely more on what Jay, our city attorney,
well, I tell you what, I wasn't trying to debate it. What I was trying to do is to reemphasize that if it is the will of council on any plan, we are more than happy to build that into our schedule and take it to the board for feedback. What we would like is the courtesy of that direction at the front end of the process, and so that we're not increasingly off schedule. And so I don't think that was your intent. You were trying to make sure we weren't skipping something, and that's good. I'm glad. So we'll ask Jay for a comment on it, but the way I'm reading it, it does give you the discretion to ask for that. And that's the way we read it, and we'll just make sure we're both reading the same section, and we'll make sure that legal gives us his opinion, and we'll go over that, because guess what? It's real close to our administrative section that will be coming up at our next work session.
Was that 1120 something or other?
It's in the 1100 section, and we're going to be talking at the direction of Councilmember Wagenhauser. We're going to be looking at Article 11, the whole article. And so we're going to come to y'all with some choices at your next work session, and it will actually specifically cover that. But right now, it is scheduled to go to the Planning Commission, and we have pushed out yet again for another council hearing that's elective at that time. So again, another hearing is elective for y'all if that's what you so choose to do. Let's see. So I'm going to answer Mr. Roman's questions. So Mr. Roman had served on our Preservation Commission several years in the past. He is a contributing citizen. We hear from him occasionally when it comes to planning matters. So I want to kind of talk about, first, just a moment, how fundamentally plans work. Plans are not ordinances. Comp plan's not an ordinance. It's not regulatory. The transportation plan is not regulatory. It's also not a capital improvement plan. What it has in it is the thoughts, guidance, and preferences that the community wants to articulate to incoming people of what we'd like to see and how we'd like to see it be done. And it's also a little bit of a contract with the public where we tell them, here's kind of where we think we're headed. It is a guide. So most of the things that are in here that are work plan items would require an endorsement by the city manager, a contract, and a bid to even get started on them. There may be some low-hanging fruit in there that are like repair infill sidewalk or something like that, that doesn't require all that. But most of these, if they're big enough to make the plan, they're big enough to be on the council's desk for the opportunity for a public comment before we proceed. There is not one sidewalk on here. All those sidewalk projects are $3 million projects. Not one of those has been anticipated or thought about without it going through the manager and to the council first. So the reason I know Paul, I probably made him frustrated when I did, and then this. Yes, this is an articulation of desires, hopes, and dreams. It is not regulatory. And the city council can decide to do an item that's not in the plan. They can add an item back to the plan. They can they're not going to do that, but I am doing full disclosure. A plan is a guiding document. There are two ways to use a plan in the city of Madison, and we've done both. There's one plan that you sit on the shelf and you don't look at it, and you pull it down when you want to tell a developer no to something. We use it to legally defend ourselves. And we call the city attorney and we say, hey, we got this group that wants to come in and do this, and we want to tell them, no, they can't do that. And we want to say the comprehensive plan or the transportation plan advises against it, or the community will has telegraphed that we don't want that, okay? The plan shows purposeful thought to a judge. The other way to use a plan is actually have a plan, and either a city department, a city agency, a city manager, whoever it is, actively works the plan. They go get grants, they have conversations with the county, they go love on GDOT and say, please give us money, please pay attention to us. But plans are not regulatory. They just communicate a snapshot of where the community would like to be in 10 to 20 years at that moment in time. That's it. So they are not regulatory. They don't bind the council to that specific will, but they can help you defend the lawsuit if you use it consistently. That's it. So that's how planning works as opposed to zoning or any of our other regulatory ordinances. Those are a little different. All right, I'm gonna turn around and do this, and I know we're not supposed to be a one-on-one with the public, but I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Three things. Broadband is addressed, but not in the transportation plan. By state law, that's addressed in the broadband plan, and that goes in the comp plan. It's a required component of every community in the state of Georgia as part of comp planning, and that's when we'll address that. So it's not considered here, it's just not the appropriate time or place. Please work with the county, okay? And then I just briefly, I'll just touch on the signage concerns in the district. That's the reason we're tough on sign ordinances everywhere. Yes, signs can be litter, and I have written down this concern, and I've already communicated it to the Green Space Board. Not all our citizens agree on what the highest priority for different things is. The Preservation Commission is going to disagree with the Green Space Board, and not any one group is more important than any other. So I hear the concern about signage. There's certainly ways we can downplay or do better, but the Green Space Board really wanted to determine walkways that were safe and areas they could direct people to. They're not designed for the tourist, but the tourist is an add-on. That was really a walking path designed for AARP, because we did it ourselves as a designated community, and that was Green Space's goal of what they wanted articulated. I did hear the comment tonight about the posts that don't have signage on it. Those are from the old wellness trail that Ann Huff did about 15 years ago, and those can be removed. Our Public Works has to have time to get to things. They just haven't gotten to those yet. That's been communicated to them, and those are posts that can be removed.
The black posts that we referenced?
Yes, there were black posts that used to have little black signs on them about this big that would say quarter of a mile, half a mile. You'll see them in the cemetery. Some of the ones in the cemetery have been knocked down, but we do understand there's a kind of a plethora of black posts that haven't been removed yet, but it's not that we're not aware of it. It's just it's not the top priority when as Sean will say, when water is doing this on North Avenue, you go do that instead of taking up the aesthetic problem. Last thing I think Annie mentioned, and I didn't touch on yet, was railroads. Look at me remembering it in the middle of menopause. The railroad. We saw the problems that happened when we disconnected Bernie. We have a whole community, 1/4 of our citizens, none of which are sitting in this room, that were disconnected. It is a disservice to take out any railroad crossing. If we take them out, we never get them back, ever. So it's really important that that be a very contemplative decision if we do that. We will not necessarily get a 1-for-1, because there are other factors that they're considering, like proximity, where they blow their horns, visible acuity as you get to the intersections. And so I know that at one time we had contemplated seeing if we could get Bernie reopened, but we would have to look at opening oil mill. And there was some debate about that, and at the time, Green Space said, we'd like it for pedestrian and bicycles, but we don't want to see vehicular opened up on oil mill at all. And so I know that that will be a long area for discussion, and that is something that is bigger than our current transportation plan, and it involves yet another agency that's akin to God. So, you know, if you haven't paid attention lately, it's God and then the railroad and then GDOT. And so that's the order. And so if we're going to touch one of those, the bypass is the most important. And we're doing our best to listen to everybody in the 6 months past comments, but we're trying to make sure that, and this is in no way meant to disregard the comments that were made tonight, we are also still trying to listen to the groups that participated and all the people who participated in that first 6-month window. The new comments don't negate some of their wishes and interests as well, even though they're not here to participate afterwards. So happy to answer any questions, and if I skipped one, somebody let me know. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, the entrance of the cemetery at Central Avenue.
Yes, sir. Okay, so there is, I think it's an orange dot, and that's why I apologize for not having perfect recall of every project. There is an orange dot, I believe, at the front end of the cemetery, and that is because we had numerous people indicate that they walk their dogs, they walk their strollers, they walk their children from, if you're a cemetery person, from Old Cemetery over to New Cemetery by the Well House. And that area has gotten, there's just no good planning term, crappier and crappier to walk. It's harder to cross the rail. And so that dot should be an indication that we want to improve that pedestrian crossing from the front part of the cemetery into the back part of the cemetery. And so
The dot is not at the railroad tracks, the dot is at where Central Avenue.
that's correct. It was placed where the address of the cemetery is. The address is 420 whatever that street is. Central, thank you. And so it is placed at the front of the property since we own all 4 cemeteries. But it indicates an improvement of the, and maybe there does need to be some text so that it assuages concerns about that. But we have numerous people who have articulated how much they enjoy walking our cemetery, and that crossing is a little rough. And that was all I remember being discussed as an improvement at the front end of the cemetery.
Okay, well, that's fine.
That's the only thing I remember.
There was an effort by the city to build a gigantic arch at that entrance, and it was only in the last minute, practically lying down the street, it got stopped. That's why there's a history to that.
Okay, and I apologize, that must predate 1998 because I have no awareness that that happened.
This was in 1990.
So see, there's institutional memory in the room that I am not even aware of. So anybody else's question I missed? Did that answer your question? Mr. Roman, did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Elizabeth, did you have another one I missed?
It's 2 separate dots. One's gold at the end of Central and says proposed intersection improvement, and then one's orange and
Let me see it. Oh, I see. Okay, so yes, it is a crosswalk. So there are 2 things. One is making the pedestrians safer over the railroad tracks from Old to New Cemetery, and making sure that there is a safe access from, who's on the corner? The Argos. From the Argos across the street, because that is one of our highly walked tourism areas. It's also where we have a lot of people crossing that street. And so
Currently a crosswalk marked there, but it's not been taken yet, I believe, right? Yeah.
And so that must have been one of the improvements noted either at the open house in the park where they were putting dots where they didn't feel safe. Because a lot of those things we were just responding to, where are there minimal projects we could do to make pedestrians feel more safe? It's at that intersection. It's going to end up being wherever a traffic engineer says that you can connect. I'm sorry, I'm like engaging the public, y'all. I'm sorry. It would be wherever it makes more sense to continue an existing city sidewalk straight forward in terms of a crosswalk. So if I remember correctly, the Argos have one in front of theirs, but they may not. So there he is. Great. So so there would be getting the pedestrians safer to across Academy. And I think that addresses both dots. And so there's no intention of, that I know of extending beyond that, just a crosswalk across, because I think used to be a wellness sign on the corner in front of Miss Almond's, and that gets removed because it's part of the old trail. That will go away eventually. And I think I've addressed most questions. Anything else y'all have for me this evening?
Thanks, Monica.
You're welcome.
Report.
My
Appreciate
number
the
one
comments.
takeaway that I heard tonight, I'm going to repeat it because Molly and I will go back and call and ask for time to be spent on it. The number one thing that we want public perception and to convey to both the public and GDOT the seriousness of the bypass. So even though we don't prioritize them, you want it at the top of the list, even though they're not numbered, but that would communicate clearly in a more clear fashion that that's top of the list for everybody. Okay.
Thanks, Monica.
If you have any other comments in the days to come, please stop or give your comments to John and he'll relay them to us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. If there are no more comments, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.